Hip-hop is in chaos right now, and it all traces back to one documentary tied to 50 Cent. Leaked footage, viral clips, and unverified arrest rumors have the entire industry on edge. What started as behind-the-scenes storytelling has now spiraled into a full-scale cultural meltdown nobody can control. Word on the streets right now is that hip-hop is shaking in a way nobody expected, and it all traces back to a wave of leaked footage tied to 50 Cent's latest documentary project. According to circulating reports, what started as behind-the-scenes material has now spiraled into something much bigger. Alleged arrests, industry panic, and clips that people are calling career-ending. It didn't begin as chaos, it began as curiosity. When 50 Cent first attached himself to a major documentary-style investigation project in late 2023, most people assumed it would be another bold but controlled industry exposé. But by December 2025, when the 4-part Netflix docuseries dropped, the tone had completely shifted. The project, centered around decades of allegations, rivalries, and private industry history, was presented as a deep dive into the hidden layers of one of music's most powerful empires. Netflix pushed it as an unfiltered, investigative breakdown of a music legacy built over decades, pulling together interviews, archival footage, and never-before-seen material that instantly set the internet on fire. But what really changed everything wasn't just what was included, it was what surfaced unexpectedly. Some of the most talked-about moments reportedly came from footage filmed in the days leading up to a major legal turning point in the story being covered. That material, originally intended for a private documentary project, allegedly found its way into the hands of 50 Cent's production team through a disputed leak involving a third-party freelancer. That's where things started to get messy. According to reports from individuals connected to the production, the original filmmakers claimed the footage was never meant for public release. One of the lead documentarians even described it as a breach of trust, suggesting it was passed along without authorization while key team members were out of town. But the production team behind the Netflix series maintained a very different stance, insisting the material was obtained legally and cleared for use. From there, the documentary didn't just tell a story, it detonated one. Clips began circulating that showed tense, unfiltered moments behind closed doors, including heated exchanges involving legal teams, industry conversations about damage control, and emotionally charged discussions that painted a very different picture than the public had ever seen. One segment in particular, showing an artist visibly frustrated while addressing their legal strategy, became one of the most replayed and dissected moments online. Almost immediately after the series' release, social media went into overdrive. Fans, critics, and industry insiders began analyzing every frame, every pause, every background detail, trying to piece together what was real, what was edited, and what might have been left out entirely. Then came the second wave, the fallout. Within days of the documentary gaining massive traction, unverified claims started circulating online suggesting that multiple figures in the broader hip-hop ecosystem were facing legal scrutiny tied to unrelated incidents that suddenly resurfaced in public conversation. Posts began linking individuals, past allegations, and resurfaced footage in ways that blurred the line between confirmed events and internet speculation. Some reports even went further, suggesting arrests had taken place shortly after certain clips went viral. However, these claims remain unverified and largely fueled by social media amplification rather than official statements. Still, that didn't stop the narrative from spreading at lightning speed. And at the center of it all, 50 Cent didn't stay quiet. Instead of distancing himself from the controversy, he leaned directly into it. Through public posts and clipped reactions, he mocked some of the moments being circulated, reshared viral arrest-related content, and doubled down on the documentary's impact. To his supporters, it looked like strategic transparency. To critics, it looked like provocation at maximum volume. But to the industry, it was something else entirely: control of the narrative. What made this situation even more intense was how quickly the documentary shifted perception. 50 Cent was no longer just seen as a rapper or producer with a reputation for trolling. He was now operating in a space where he could reshape public understanding of entire careers through carefully curated storytelling and selectively released footage. The reaction from the opposing camp was immediate. Representatives pushed back against the documentary's framing, criticizing the inclusion of certain clips and questioning how some of the material was obtained. Statements described the series as misleading, while also suggesting that it exaggerated moments for dramatic effect. But by that point, the conversation had already moved beyond official responses. Online discourse had taken over. Every clip became evidence. Every silence became interpretation. Every edit became a theory. And in that environment, truth and speculation started blending together until they were almost indistinguishable. What makes this moment so volatile is not just the documentary itself, but what it triggered. Conversations about accountability in the music industry, questions about what should and shouldn't be made public, and debates over whether documentary storytelling can cross into reputational destruction are now all happening at once. And in the middle of it, 50 Cent remains exactly where he seems most comfortable, at the center of attention, watching the reaction unfold in real time and continuing to shape it with every post, every clip, and every comment. Because whether people see it as exposure, exploitation, or entertainment, one thing is undeniable: the documentary didn't just tell a story. It started a chain reaction the industry still can't fully control. Word on the streets is that hip-hop just hit another level of chaos, and this time, it's not just music beef or online trolling. It's lawsuits, leaked footage, and a documentary that's allegedly shaking the entire industry to its core. At the center of it all is 50 Cent, and a Netflix documentary project that has turned into one of the most controversial music industry releases in recent memory. According to circulating claims, footage tied to the documentary, originally intended to document behind-the-scenes moments of a major music empire, has now sparked outrage, legal threats, and a wave of public fallout that nobody fully saw coming. Some reports even suggest arrests followed shortly after certain clips went viral, though those claims remain unverified and heavily debated online. But the real explosion started long before the internet got involved. Back in late 2023, 50 Cent partnered on a multi-part Netflix docuseries that promised an unfiltered look into decades of industry history, rivalries, and allegations surrounding one of hip-hop's most powerful figures. By December 2025, the series finally dropped and immediately became one of the most talked-about releases on the platform. Netflix positioned it as an investigative deep dive, combining interviews, archival footage, and never-before-seen material meant to unpack years of controversy and behind-the-scenes tension in the music world. But what made it explosive wasn't just what was shown, it was how the footage was obtained. Some of the most controversial clips reportedly came from private recordings made in the days leading up to major legal developments in the story being documented. Those materials, originally intended for a controlled documentary project, allegedly surfaced through a disputed leak involving a third-party freelancer. That single detail triggered a legal firestorm. Representatives for the artist at the center of the documentary immediately pushed back, calling the project a hit piece and accusing Netflix of using unauthorized material. In a strongly worded statement, they argued that private footage was misused and that the entire project represented a breach of trust, especially given that some of the material was recorded for personal storytelling purposes dating back years. They didn't stop there. Their response directly targeted 50 Cent as well, framing his involvement as deeply personal rather than journalistic. According to their statement, handing creative influence to someone who has publicly feuded with the subject for decades created what they described as a personal and unfair breach, not just a documentary. They even claimed the project felt like retaliation disguised as storytelling. But Netflix didn't back down. The platform issued a firm response denying all allegations of wrongdoing, insisting the footage was legally obtained and cleared for use. They also made one thing very clear: 50 Cent was an executive producer, not someone with full creative control over the project. That single clarification shifted part of the narrative. It suggested the documentary wasn't a one-man takedown, but a broader production backed by legal clearance and editorial oversight. Still, the damage was already done. Once the series aired, social media exploded. Clips spread instantly, some showing emotional conversations, others showing tense exchanges involving legal teams and private discussions that viewers had never seen before. Every frame was analyzed, reposted, and debated. And then came 50 Cent's reaction. Instead of distancing himself from the controversy, he leaned into it. Through social media posts, he mocked aspects of the backlash, reshared viral moments, and fueled the conversation in real time. Whether people saw it as trolling or strategy, one thing was undeniable: he was controlling attention. But the situation escalated further when claims surfaced online, suggesting a wave of arrests linked to individuals shown or mentioned in leaked footage. Those claims spread rapidly, but no official confirmation ever supported them, turning the internet into a mix of speculation, outrage, and misinformation. Meanwhile, legal pressure mounted. The opposing camp issued cease and desist notices, arguing that private pre-indictment footage should never have been released publicly. They labeled the documentary unethical and misleading, while Netflix stood firm that everything used was properly licensed and legally obtained. In an unexpected twist, things got even stranger when 50 Cent claimed on social media that he received a bouquet of flowers allegedly sent by the opposing side during a live performance. The implication alone was enough to ignite rumors of intimidation or sarcasm. But those claims were quickly denied by representatives, who suggested it was either misinformation or a poorly timed joke taken out of context. While the public debate spiraled, the real-world legal situation tied to the broader case continued evolving separately, unrelated to the documentary itself, but heavily amplified by its release. Court proceedings, testimony references, and resurfaced allegations all became part of the online conversation, blurring the line between entertainment and active legal narrative. At the same time, the documentary itself became a cultural flashpoint. Some saw it as accountability, others saw it as exploitation. Critics questioned whether storytelling at this level crosses ethical boundaries when it involves real people, ongoing legal matters, and deeply personal histories. And at the center of that debate is a decades-long rivalry between two of hip-hop's most influential figures. 50 Cent and the opposing mogul's relationship stretches back more than 20 years, starting in the same industry circles, shifting through collaboration, and eventually collapsing into one of the most public feuds in music history. Over the years, it moved from business disagreements to diss tracks, interviews, viral comments, and deeply personal accusations that pushed the conflict far beyond music. Even moments of brief calm never lasted. Every truce eventually gave way to another wave of tension, another interview, another jab, another headline. Now, with a Netflix documentary pulling decades of history, allegations, and behind-the-scenes footage into one narrative, that long-standing rivalry has entered a completely new phase, one where storytelling itself becomes the battleground. Because this is no longer just about music. It's about reputation, legacy, and who gets to control the final version of the story the world remembers. Things didn't just escalate in 2023, they detonated. What started as whispers about legal trouble surrounding Diddy quickly turned into one of the most chaotic and polarizing storylines hip-hop had seen in years. And at the center of it, once again, was 50 Cent, turning controversy into content, and content into an entire media machine that the industry couldn't ignore. By October 2023, speculation was already circulating online about serious allegations connected to Diddy's past and his industry circle. That's when 50 Cent took things a step further. In public posts, he suggested possible connections between Diddy and the unresolved 1996 killing of Tupac Shakur, a claim that immediately sent shockwaves through social media. It's important to be clear here. Those allegations were not proven, and Diddy has consistently denied any involvement in the deaths of Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. Still, the damage from even the suggestion was immediate. In hip-hop culture, where legacy and history carry enormous weight, even speculation becomes a form of influence. And 50 Cent understood that better than anyone. Because by 2025, he wasn't just an artist commenting from the sidelines anymore. He had evolved into something much bigger, a producer, a storyteller, and a strategic media figure with direct access to global platforms like Netflix. What used to be Instagram trolling had transformed into structured, high-budget documentary storytelling. That shift changed everything. When the 4-part documentary centered on Diddy's life and legal controversies dropped in late 2025, the industry split instantly. For some, it was investigative storytelling. For others, it felt like a calculated takedown. And because 50 Cent was attached as an executive producer, the conversation immediately became personal. It wasn't just about what was in the documentary. It was about who was telling the story. Almost immediately, backlash came from multiple directions. One of the loudest voices was Ja Rule, reigniting a feud that had already stretched across more than 2 decades. But this time, the battlefield wasn't music charts or interviews. It was Netflix documentaries and social media narratives reaching millions of viewers at once. Ja Rule publicly criticized 50 Cent's involvement, questioning his motives and accusing him of exploiting real-life legal situations for entertainment. In his posts, he went further, calling 50 Cent toxic to the culture, and suggesting that his behavior mirrored the very people he was criticizing. The tension didn't come out of nowhere. The 50 Cent and Ja Rule feud is one of the longest-running rivalries in hip-hop history. It reportedly began in the late 1990s after an alleged robbery incident involving Ja Rule and someone associated with 50 Cent's circle in Queens. From that point forward, what could have been a short-lived street conflict evolved into a decades-long war of music, interviews, diss tracks, and public humiliation campaigns. Different versions of the origin story have always existed. 50 Cent has claimed that tension escalated after witnessing Ja Rule's reaction to people from his circle, while Ja Rule has consistently denied certain details and framed the feud differently. Over time, the truth became less important than the narrative each side built around it. By the early 2000s, the conflict had gone fully public. Diss tracks were released, radio interviews turned hostile, and at one point, violence even entered the picture, including a widely reported stabbing incident involving an associate connected to the rivalry. That moment permanently escalated the feud beyond music. So when Ja Rule resurfaced years later to criticize 50 Cent's Netflix involvement, it wasn't random, it was continuation. A rivalry that never fully died, just evolved. In response, 50 Cent didn't issue a formal statement. He did what he always does, he posted. He shared clips, reposted old interviews, and highlighted moments involving industry figures discussing his rivals. One of the most viral posts referenced a former bodyguard recounting controversial stories involving Diddy and Ja Rule, which immediately reignited online debates. His caption was simple, almost dismissive, but the message was clear: he wasn't backing down. While that online war unfolded, another layer of the story was developing, this time involving Diddy's own family. In late 2025, Diddy's sons, Justin and Christian, announced a documentary project of their own, reportedly focused on their experience navigating public scrutiny, legal pressure, and the impact of their father's ongoing case. The project was positioned as a personal counter-narrative, offering a view from inside the family rather than the media outside it. The timing was impossible to ignore. As one documentary shaped public perception of Diddy from an external investigative angle, another was being developed from inside his family circle, aiming to reclaim the narrative. The result was a media tug-of-war, competing documentaries, competing narratives, and competing emotional truths. And while all of this was unfolding, 50 Cent continued to operate in the background like a director who never leaves the set. He didn't just comment on events, he reframed them. Through interviews, posts, and viral clips, he positioned himself as both observer and participant in the unfolding drama. Even when he wasn't directly mentioned, his presence was felt in how conversations were shaped, shared, and amplified online. One of the most controversial moments came when he publicly reshared edited content referencing old connections between industry figures, reviving decades-old rumors and blending them with present-day events. For critics, it was irresponsible amplification. For supporters, it was exposing what they called hidden industry history. The line between journalism, entertainment, and personal rivalry had completely blurred. At the same time, the broader legal context surrounding Diddy's situation remained active in public discourse. Reports of ongoing proceedings, testimonies, and allegations circulated widely online, often detached from verified court outcomes and repackaged through social media commentary. This created a feedback loop. Legal updates fueled online content, which fueled reaction videos, which fueled further speculation. And in that environment, the documentary became more than a project. It became a catalyst. Even commercial culture got pulled into it. 50 Cent leaned into satire and branding, appearing in promotional content that referenced the ongoing feud in exaggerated comedic ways. One campaign framed celebrity conflict as entertainment itself, turning real tension into marketing language. It was provocative, intentional, and impossible to ignore. By this point, 50 Cent was no longer just a rapper reacting to industry drama. He had positioned himself as a media force capable of shaping how stories are told, shared, and remembered. And that power came with consequences. Critics accused him of blurring ethical lines, especially when real legal cases and personal reputations were involved. Supporters argued he was simply exposing what others avoided discussing publicly. The truth, as always in situations like this, sat somewhere in between. Because what makes this moment in hip-hop different isn't just the controversy itself. It's the scale. A decades-long feud between two of the most recognizable names in music has now been absorbed into streaming platforms, social media ecosystems, and global news cycles. Every post becomes a headline. Every clip becomes evidence. Every reaction becomes part of the story. And that's what makes it so difficult to contain. Even as backlash grows, even as legal threats circulate, and even as competing narratives emerge from all sides, the momentum doesn't slow down. If anything, it accelerates. Because in this new era of entertainment, conflict doesn't stay private anymore. It becomes content. And in this case, it becomes an entire industry ecosystem built around one question nobody seems able to answer definitively. Where does storytelling end and real-world consequence begin? On March 5, 2026, the internet didn't just react to a post, it detonated. It started with a single Instagram upload from 50 Cent. No press conference, no interview, just a screenshot, a headline, and a caption that instantly sent social media into overdrive. The rumor he was addressing sounded almost unreal at first. Claims that he was developing a documentary centered on T.I. and Tiny Harris, specifically tied to long-circulating sexual assault allegations. Within minutes, the phrase, "surviving T.I. and Tiny," began spreading online like wildfire. Then came the caption. And that's where everything escalated. 50 Cent referenced his previous documentary work, pointing back to how quiet people thought he was before his Diddy project dropped. Then he followed it with a warning that felt less like a comment and more like a signal. The tone wasn't accidental, it was calculated. He suggested the idea of a new project, mocked the timing of T.I.'s promotional run, and referenced ongoing allegations in a way that immediately pulled attention away from music and straight into controversy. Even though the post was later deleted, it had already done its job. Screenshots lived forever. But to understand why this moment hit so hard, you have to understand the history underneath it. This wasn't the beginning of tension between 50 Cent and T.I. It was just the latest explosion in a feud that's been building for nearly 2 decades. Their conflict traces back to the late 2000s, when early industry disagreements and public comments started creating distance between them. Over the years, the tension cooled, reignited, and cooled again, but never fully disappeared. Fast forward to 2026, and the rivalry had entered a completely new phase. No longer just interviews or diss tracks, it had become multimedia warfare. Podcasts, live streams, social media threads, and now, rumors of documentaries that could reshape reputations on a global scale. The spark this time came during T.I.'s promotional run for new music, where he allegedly criticized 50 Cent for avoiding a Versus-style battle. That comment reopened an old wound and triggered a chain reaction. 50 Cent responded the way he often does now, not with a track, but with silence and strategy. Then came the escalation. T.I. fired back through interviews and music, dropping multiple diss records over a short span. His family became involved too, with his sons entering the conversation and releasing music aimed directly at 50 Cent. What had started as a celebrity disagreement suddenly became a family-level public war. But then things crossed a line. T.I.'s son, King Harris, went live online and launched into a heated rant that included deeply personal and highly controversial remarks aimed at 50 Cent's late mother. The comments sparked immediate backlash across social media. Even within T.I.'s own circle, the reaction was mixed. King later wore a shirt featuring an image tied to the controversy, intensifying the situation further. The moment spread instantly online, and even fans who followed the beef closely admitted it had gone too far. T.I. eventually addressed the situation publicly, acknowledging the tension but distancing himself from his son's actions. He explained that his family members were acting independently and that he had advised restraint after things escalated. But by then, the damage was already done. Because 50 Cent didn't respond with outrage. He responded with something far more strategic. A documentary rumor. This is where the pattern becomes clear. In recent years, 50 Cent has shifted from being a traditional rapper engaged in public feuds to something much more powerful. A narrative architect, someone who doesn't just participate in industry conflict, but reshapes how it's seen by millions. He demonstrated this most clearly with his involvement in a major Netflix docuseries focused on another music industry figure. That project didn't just generate attention, it dominated global streaming conversations, pulling massive viewership numbers within days of release and becoming a cultural talking point far beyond hip-hop. The message the industry took from that was simple. When 50 Cent turns a story into a documentary, it doesn't stay contained. It SBR, AIDS, and that's exactly why the mere rumor of a new project involving T.I. and Tiny was enough to shift the entire conversation. Even more complicated was the fact that the allegations tied to the Harris family have existed in public discourse for years. Since the early 2020s, multiple individuals have come forward with claims involving misconduct, with stories ranging from nightclub encounters to hotel incidents. Some alleged a pattern of coercion involving VIP spaces and private gatherings. However, despite the volume of accusations, the legal system has not produced criminal convictions. Investigations were reportedly opened in different jurisdictions, but many cases stalled or were limited by legal constraints such as statutes of limitations. T.I. and Tiny have consistently denied wrongdoing, maintaining that all encounters were consensual and lawful. That gap between legal outcome and public perception is exactly where this story becomes volatile. Because even without courtroom conclusions, the narrative itself becomes a force. And 50 Cent knows that better than almost anyone in entertainment. As of March 2026, there is no confirmed production, no verified studio backing, and no official documentary in development tied to the rumor he posted. That uncertainty is what makes it so powerful. Because in today's media environment, the threat often travels faster than the truth. A title alone, especially one echoing past high-profile documentaries, can reshape public conversation before a single frame is filmed. That's why the post worked. It didn't need confirmation. It needed attention. And it got exactly that. Almost immediately after the rumor spread, discussions erupted across social media. Some people treated it as satire or trolling. Others took it seriously. And a third group began analyzing what it would mean if such a project actually existed. Meanwhile, T.I.'s side found itself in a defensive position, responding not just to music or interviews, but to a narrative they couldn't fully control because it wasn't officially real. That's the most dangerous part. You can't sue a rumor the same way you can sue a film. And that ambiguity is where 50 Cent operates most effectively. In parallel, he continued leveraging his entertainment empire, using music placements, media appearances, and branded content to reinforce his position in the cultural conversation. Even promotional material tied to unrelated projects began to carry subtle references to ongoing industry tensions, blurring the line between storytelling and real-life conflict. Critics argue this approach crosses ethical boundaries, especially when real people and unresolved allegations are involved. Supporters argue it exposes conversations the industry has avoided for years. Both sides agree on one thing. It works, because even when nothing is officially confirmed, the impact is already real. Careers get discussed differently, public perception shifts, old narratives resurface, and silence becomes part of the story itself. By the time the dust settles on any single post, the next wave has already begun. And that's what makes this moment different from earlier eras of hip-hop conflict. This isn't just beef anymore. It's content infrastructure. A system where rumors become headlines, headlines become discourse, and discourse becomes entertainment that loops endlessly across platforms. At the center of it all remains 50 Cent, someone who has survived violence, industry collapse, and reinvention, and has now positioned himself in a role few others occupy. Not just a participant in hip-hop history, but someone actively shaping how that history is recorded in real time. And as of now, with the industry still reacting to a documentary that may or may not exist, and another rumor already taking its place. One question is hanging over everything. If the threat alone can shake the entire culture, what happens if the next project is actually real?